Hi, this is Mr. Spencer with an ACT prep session focusing on the ACT reading test. The previous video that is posted to YouTube, and I will have shared the link to you, explains how to get into the Michigan Electronic Library, College Preparation Center, and so on. So I'm going to move kind of quickly through that. If you jump right to this and you're not sure how to get into the mel.org site, go back to that video and you can get that information there. But one of the things you will learn is that when you get to mel.org that you click on the teens button icon, and then you go to College Bound, that section. You would then scroll down to the College Preparation Center, which happens to have this yellowy orange icon, and I'm going to click on that. Okay, I am already signed in. You do need to register and sign in to access the resources fully, and again, information about that is in the previous video. From the College Prep Center, I'm going to focus on the ACT test. You can see there's links to the AP and SAT and so on, but I'm going to click on ACT. Okay, and what I'm going to do right now is we're going to click on the Prepare for Your ACT test. Actually, that's where we are right now. Remember the practice tests. When we finish, if you want to do one of the reading practice tests, you would get to this screen, click on this, and then you can choose the reading tests and take a full practice test. There's 4 of them. But I'm going to launch the tutorial. And there's several units here. This week we're working on the ACT reading test, and that is right here, Unit 5. So I'm going to click on that. And away we go. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I'm going to try to share enough where you can get some basic information. You'll definitely need to go back and read more about the different reading strategies and so on, but we'll at least have a decent start so you can find out some information about the reading test. On the introductory screen to this tutorial, you'll see some real basic information about the test. It's 35 minutes. There are 40 questions and so on, but let's keep moving. We're going to open the lesson, lesson 1, the overview of the reading test, and again, very brief right there for the introduction. So let's click on the next button, and we'll get a little bit more. I'm going to read through a few of these sections, but most of it I'm going to leave up to you. But it says the ACT reading test is 35 minutes long and includes 40 multiple choice questions. There are 4 passages you need to read. Each one is about 800 words, and each one is followed by 10 questions. The passages, as it says down here, and I'll try to highlight this in blue and then remove it, the passages come directly from original sources in 4 different areas. So you want to be aware that these some are going to be natural science, they're going to be nonfiction, they're going to be true with facts. Others might be fiction. It might be a story that you're going to be reading. But most of them are nonfiction and will have factual information on them. There's different types of questions, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But basically, it says 14 of the 40 questions ask for information taken right out of the passage, and the ACT refers to these as referring questions. So, and that's always the formula. If it says 14 of the 40 are going to be referring questions or right there questions, as your teachers sometimes call them, that's going to be the number. And that leaves 26 questions. The other ones are questions where you have to reason information or infer, what they call it, to get the actual question. You might have to take little bits of information from a few different places in the text to answer the question. So now the types of reading questions that you'll find, there are 8 different types based on those 2 different categories of referring questions and inferring questions. But in general, there's detail questions, main idea questions, and there's an example of each in this tutorial. And again, I'm not going to take the time to read through all those. You can do that. But so we have detail questions, main idea questions, questions that ask you to compare, cause and effect questions. I'm going to click on next to go to the next page. Generalization questions, vocabulary questions, although what they point out is that the ACT vocab questions does not really test your knowledge of vocabulary words, they're always going to provide clues that will link you to the answer regarding a particular vocabulary word. So you may not know exactly what the word is, but use the clues around it and you should be able to answer the question. There are inference questions, and there's examples of those. That might be a word that's a little strange right now for you, but there's a lot of information about that. Point of view questions, in terms of what's the author's point of view. It may not be your point of view, but it'll ask what the author's point of view is on a particular topic. So those are the 8 kinds of questions. Definitely spend a little time learning about those. Again, being familiar with the question types is just going to help you be more comfortable when you start reading through the questions. The format of the questions, I just clicked on that section. You can see some examples and they'll explain the types of questions that you'll see. One of the things is that some questions will tell you specifically which lines the answer is in. And so in this case, you'd want to narrow in on lines 21 to 27. Even though you might see something that relates to the question in lines 48, that's not where the answer is going to be. They want you to focus on a particular part of the passage, so make sure that you take a look at those, maybe underline it really quickly. One of the strategies they'll tell you to do is to read through the questions first fairly quickly and then jump into the passage, because you might be able to jump through the passage a little bit more quickly than if you just started the reading itself. So in that case, those are the question format. We'll now go on to the types of reading passages. And there's a little bit of information about all 4. Again, prose fiction, humanities, which could be the arts, film, things like that, social studies type questions, everything from geography to economics, business, and so on, and then natural science questions. These do not require you to know these different areas. This is not a test of your science knowledge. In fact, in some cases, they'll tell you that using your own knowledge to answer a question might lead you down the wrong path. They want you to use the information in the reading passage. They're trying to see if you understand what is being presented in the passage. So be careful about that, using your own knowledge to answer these questions. The last section in this first lesson of the ACT Reading Overview are test-taking strategies, and these are some very valuable ones. Definitely you want to look through these, keep them in mind. Never leave an answer blank. The ACT does not deduct points for wrong answers. In other words, guess if you don't know the answer. Try to narrow down your choices if you have time, but ultimately put something down for each item. Here's that part that says go through the questions before you read the passages. Just spend a minute or so looking at them, saying, all right, they're going to ask about, this type of rock or whatever. So when you see that, your mind, you can maybe jump down to that question and try to answer it right away. Take notes on the test. So you can write on the test booklet as much as you need. So you might want to circle something, and if you think this is going to be important, like it's the main idea, maybe star it or something like that. You can make notes all over the test booklet, just not the answer sheet. Read all the answers. It says if one answer jumps out at you and you're sure it's right, read the other answers anyway, because something might be more right, or it might clue you that maybe they're not looking at what I thought they were. Eliminate wrong answers first. So obviously if you know some that aren't right, just cross them out. Narrow down your choices. Answer questions on the test booklet. So they recommend circling the answer, but then you have to make sure you put it over on your answer booklet as well. Here's that point. Do not use what you already know. Now you think that would be a good thing, and being familiar with the topic probably is, but just be careful that you don't answer just based on your own knowledge. Make sure that the same information is up in the passage. Check your answers with the text. In other words, go back and double check and then pace yourself. It says you have a little less than 9 minutes to read each of the 4 passages and then answer the questions. So 9 minutes might seem like a long time. You don't want to rush through it, and make sure that you don't want to be done with the reading section with 10 or 12 minutes to spare. But you have to kind of learn how to pace yourself, and that's done best through the practice tests. Okay, so now moving on, that was the overall overview of the test. Now I just want to show you where there's information on these different types of questions and how to make inferences and so on. It's almost like a little mini reading lesson or reading class. And do as much of this as you can, because it's only going to help you when you take the test. I'm going to jump right now. I jump down to the part that says determining the main idea, and just to show you what's there. They give you a sample, they'll talk about the types of main ideas that you'll find, and they just give you a lot of information. They'll even give you things that aren't considered a main idea. They'll talk about in this passage, in this section, how the topic is not always the same as the main idea. So, and then we go on, it says page 1 of 2, I click next, we get a little bit more information on the main idea, and then quite often they'll have sample questions, and then you can write something down, you'll actually see whether it's right or wrong. I'm just going to click A, and so A is not correct, and then it will let me know that I've hit the correct main idea of that paragraph above about onions. I didn't read it, but anyway, so that's how you can find out whether or not you're on the right track. And again, here's another little passage, and you're supposed to identify the main idea. Okay. So that's a little bit, and all of these, I won't go through all of them, but when it comes to details, remember there's a variety of questions on the test. This talks about, what is a detail, and how to identify, the details that they might be looking for. There might be questions on a sequence of events. What happened before something, or after something, or at the same time as something. So any of these you can click on to get more information about them. One of the biggest ones you should probably focus on is the making of inferences. These are not detailed questions that you'll get the answer right in the passage. You're going to have to base it on different parts of the passage, and whether it's things the author writes or if it's facts as it says, but you'll have to put that together to make a correct inference, or the best inference on what they're asking you about. So I encourage you to go to the inference sections for sure and take a look at that one. And then basically you go to your summary, and it's usually very brief, but they try to just give you some really short takeaways on preparing for the test. And there actually is, if I scroll down here, a summary ACT reading test, and then of course that's for this lesson. Oops, I'm sorry, the unit quiz is actually a test where you actually get to read a passage and then answer questions based on that, and then it will score your test, and you can see how you did. But the real test, or practice if you will, are the practice tests. So make sure that once you've gone through the reading tutorial that you go back and take one or more of the practice reading tests to get your timing down and so on. So that's it for the ACT reading test tutorial. Again, it's what you put into it, and hopefully you'll spend some time to learn more about it and then practice. Thanks.